Once upon a time, there was a girl named Cinderella. Cinderella was hated by her sisters, and she was called ugly and poked at and jabbed and all throughout the day while doing all of the housework and chores for her house, while the other daughters got beautiful dresses and comfy beds. And her only time that she had to herself was at the end of the day, and she sat by the fire. And she said to the cat, which was her only friend, "Why am I ugly?" And the cat responded, "You are not ugly, but you are beautiful. While your sisters are nasty and ugly, you are beautiful." And with that, she went to bed. And the following morning, the two sisters were frantically running about, putting on their new dresses and everything, and Cinderella had no idea what was going on. So she asked her mother what was going on, and her mother responded that there was going to be a grand ball for the prince, and that you'd have to wear the most beautiful dress and look the most beautiful to go out with the prince. And immediately after that, her mother told her to clean the house, do all of the chores for the day, and laughed at her because she couldn't go because she was also doing the stuff in the house, as well as she wore rags for clothes and had clogs for shoes and no fantastically splendid high heels or anything. And she sighed. And a few minutes after they left, she heard a crackle, a fizzle, a pop, and poof, a fairy appeared out of thin air. And the fairy said, You will be able to look beautiful if you will do me one favor. You will need to get me a pumpkin, and the cat, you'll get me 6 mice. So Cinderella was amazed at this, so she ran off and got the necessary supplies. The fairy, once she had the mice and the pumpkin, she turned the pumpkin into a beautiful stagecoach. And she's turned the five of the 6 mice into horses, and the 6 mouse into a stagecoach horseman who had a beautiful whip. And she turned Cinderella's rags into a beautiful dress, and she turned her clogs into dainty little glass slippers. And Cinderella was amazed, and she turned around, and she swirled about her amazing dress, and she was so giddy and happy. And she hopped into the stagecoach, and she rode down to the ball. And when she got there, all of the women were like, "Who is that? Who is that beautiful girl?" And when the prince saw her, his jaw dropped. He strode over to her, and he asked her to dance. And they were dancing, and they were dancing so much she lost track of the time. And then suddenly, bong, 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 it had struck 12. It had struck 12 midnight. She looked at the time. She started freaking out, her heart racing. She immediately ran away from the prince. The prince called after, "Wait, don't leave." And while she was running down the stairs, a glass slipper fell off onto the stairs while she was continuing running. She dared not go back for it, and she faded into the night. The following morning, the prince had been so love-struck he wouldn't even consider another woman, and he scoured the lands for another woman by testing their feet in the glass slipper that she left behind. And when the prince got to Cinderella's house, he came up to the house, and the 2 daughters immediately thrust their way into his arms, and then he tried to put the slipper onto them, but their fat feet wouldn't fit into it. And then they were trying to ignore Cinderella, hide her away, and the prince caught her eye in the corner of the room, and he said, "Here, try on this slipper." And she put her dainty little feet into the slipper, and it fit. The prince was awestruck. He immediately told her to come into his arms, and then to engage to her and hop into the stagecoach and live happily ever after.